fantastic day out at the construction site again, checking things out. He's getting to look at rocks, and they're continuing to, develop stuff. More and more houses going in here. You can see, as far as the eye can see, all the way down there, row after row of houses. Down here, row after row of houses. I think the biggest thing that I think about is, how many more people are going to be driving on the roads around here? How much more difficult is my commute going to get to work every single day? I already have all the amenities and services that I want in the area as far as restaurants and places to go buy my food. You know how close the grocery store is. There's a place where I can go to an urgent care that's literally 5 minutes from our house. It's just more people more people are just going to use that more and make it more difficult. So I don't know. One of the things I was pondering the last couple of days here is the value of living in a large city versus like a medium-sized city. Like I'm not saying you should go live in a town of 200 people, because then that was what I grew up with, and we always had to drive to town, which was an hour away. But now when I put that in context, I think about, I live in a city, there's 2 million people in the area. I a lot of times have to drive 30 to 45 minutes to my office, which is 18 miles away, so I think about, like, what's the difference between commuting from like a small bedroom community and actually quote unquote living in a big city and commuting 45 minutes. I mean, there are days when I get stuck in traffic if it rains around here, or literally just drive, and I'm not really going anywhere. I'll be going 25 miles an hour on the interstate, and it's just super frustrating. So I know number one thing that I will say in a big city, which doesn't impact my job because I work at a university, is that there are a lot of people trying to do a lot of different things. So for example, if you want to be a forensic psychologist, you could move into a large city and maybe it's a super specific task that you're looking to work in. You can find employment. Now, if you move into a town of maybe 50,000, 100,000, or you're in a small rural state, you might not have that opportunity. So you may be constrained to the, large city or metro center there. So I get those pros and cons. They're just not pros for me. And they're not a pro for me because, I work at a university. So that means that if I work at a university, I work at a university. I don't collaborate with other people. The size of the university is really what determines my opportunity. I currently work at a small liberal arts university, which is nice. A lot of people really like that. They like the size of the university. They like the location of the university. We're in a large metro area. We got an airport right here. Super nice. But when it comes to my field of work, that, because of the size of the institution and the history of the institution, is relatively neglected, to put it nicely. And so there are some challenges there, and I would say there's some opportunities, but if you go to, say, a Power 5 institution, the size of the institution, the revenue within my area would be much, much higher, and the opportunity would be much higher. And I would say, a lot of people say, well, if you work at a larger institution, maybe there's more stress, maybe there's more pressure. I literally don't think that anybody can put externally more pressure on me than I already currently put internally on myself. So it doesn't really matter, because I have higher standards a lot of time than the university does. So if we measure success of finishing 1 through 10, for me it's 1 until we figure it out. And then once we figure it out, it's not high five, we've exceeded expectations, because my expectations are 1, it's high five, we've met expectations. So anything less than 1 doesn't meet my personal expectations. I haven't ever had a professional performance review where someone has said, we really feel like you're not meeting what our standards are. So that's been a challenge for me, because I know from an administrative level, a lot of times people understand what their available resources are, what their comparative advantage is. And ultimately, if there are 100 people competing for the same thing to be crowned the winner, only one person's going to win. There are going to be 99 losers and one winner. Which, if you're not impressed by what Nick Saban is doing at Alabama, I think it's roughly 135, 125 bowl division eligible football teams every single year. Out of the Power 5, let's say there are 30 to 40 teams that are allocating somewhat comparable resources to him. And I say somewhat, meaning like, he makes $10, $11 million. If we throw out pay, right? Most places have a stadium. Most places have a practice facility. Most places that he's competing against, especially like within the SEC, are fairly comparable institutions. He doesn't have advantages that are head and shoulders above everybody else, other than his personal brand and the other personnel from a coaching standpoint that he attracts. The University of Alabama, before he got there, was not very good. And even if you go back and you take a look at the record the first year that he was there, not very good. And Nick has had success everywhere he's been. When he was at Michigan State, they were successful. When he was, with the Browns, they were successful. When he was then, later on at LSU, they were successful, meaning that they won a national championship. I just look at all of these different pieces. And yes, institutions drive some of that stuff, but when it comes down to an actual person and their ability to do things like scheme and teach, because I think anytime that you are in a role of administration where you have people that work for you, not only are you teaching maybe the people that work within your office, but then also the people that manage them. Man, if you can do those things and lead, it's hard to find good people like that. Which is why when people find them, like the University of Alabama, they're willing to pay them. Nick, over the last few years, has won 50% of the championships that have been available. 50%. Not 50% of games. 50% of defined as the winner. Out of 125, 135 Division I schools, the winner 50% of the time. It is unprecedented. And I think if you go back and you look historically at football, in the past, the winners had more advantages. So like when John Wooden won all of his titles at UCLA, he had advantages. Okay, there are certain rules that exist within the NCAA right now that encourage parity. One of those is 85 scholarships per team. In the past, there didn't used to be a limit to how many scholarships you could have. It's just like, how many do you want to spend? And the choice then of the institution was a lot of times, let's just sop up as much talent so other people can't scholarship these kids. I'd rather have them with us than against us. So with as much parity as exists now, and I know that the rich have gotten richer recently and a lot richer, what I still would like to say is that Nick's still not just hands down being given everything to win. Still got to recruit kids, still got to coach kids, they still got to go out there and play. He still has injury risks on a regular basis, all the things that face all of us. So I just love what he does and watching him do it. The other person that I love that does this is Bill Belichick. And there's the specific reasons why these people impress me so much is that, especially with Bill, the NFL is set up for you to lose. If you were good the previous year, they give you the hardest record. Got salary caps. I mean, it is hard to, especially the other thing there, The margin of win versus lose in the NFL is razor thin so many times. And if you know anything about like scheming for teams and trying to figure out how offense versus defense matches up with one another, I think you'd be blown away. Like if you look at this last year, the Kansas City Chiefs played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Okay, first time that they played them, they played a 3-high shell, like safety, over the top zone. Okay, like 30, maybe, I think 25, 30% of the time, okay? They looked at or did an analysis of how well that worked. It was successful when they ran that 3-high safety look. They turned around and ran the thing like crazy in the Super Bowl, and for some reason, the Chiefs couldn't get out of their own way and just couldn't figure out how to beat it. Versus the week before, the Chiefs just dinked and dunked and ran short routes and just picked apart the Buffalo Bills. So the question is, you know, how can you make adjustments? How can you plan? And then how does your coaching staff and all of your players make adjustments to ultimately win? Why am I telling you this? Because to have success like New England has had consistently, mind-blowing. You can attribute it to Tom Brady if you want. Kudos to him for going to Tampa Bay and winning. You can attribute it to Bill Belichick. You can attribute it to, you know, all of the different guys that have come in and out of the system. But I attribute it to Bill. Okay? And I guess we'll see this next year as they work with Cam Newton. And I love the kid from Alabama that they picked up. I just really interested to see how he fits into their system, how he picks things up. I watch him play, and man, it just looks like he processes stuff so much more quickly. And within Bill's system, if you believe everything that you read about him, it's way more important that mistakes not be made by their quarterback and that they take what the defense is giving them. And if you can do that and you can find a person that can buy into the system that is more about like group than themselves, which I'm not going to knock the NFL, okay? That's a people thing. We all are about us, more so than we usually are the team. And rarely do you find people that are willing to make sacrifices for the team unless they have buy-in. So, I don't know. Just a bunch of thoughts I wanted to throw out there, stuff I'm thinking about right now as we explore a construction site. We're going to go hop on the old Harley over here. Go for another ride. See you guys later.